Awaken your spirit, chosen ones. When you carry divine favor, sabotage becomes a group project. Let that sit for a second, because right now, behind fake smiles, polite handshakes, and random just checking in texts, something's being plotted, not a misunderstanding, not a coincidence, but a calculated mission to throw you off track. They're not trying to talk things out. They're secretly constructing emotional landmines, praying you detonate yourself. Why? Because they finally realized what you carry can't be bought, manipulated, or duplicated. You're blessed, and not the Instagram quote kind. The heaven-backed, earth-shaking, you walk into a room and their throat dries up kind of blessed. Here's a fact that should shake you. According to psychological studies on envy and sabotage, people are most likely to attack you when your growth exposes their stagnation. In other words, their plot has less to do with you and everything to do with what your existence reveals about them. And let's be real. Some of them act like your glow is a personal insult. Like you woke up one day and said, "Today, I'm going to radiate just to ruin Cynthia's self-esteem." But this isn't about popularity, it's about purpose. And when you're chosen, your calling will always agitate the insecure, irritate the manipulative, and terrify the ones who secretly bet on your failure. So buckle up, because in this video, we're exposing every hidden motive, decoding the schemes, and reminding the enemy why trying to throw off a chosen one is like throwing a rock at a mountain. Pointless, petty, and only wakes the giant. Let's get into it. Number one, they're not plotting against you, they're plotting against the future you carry. They're not really fighting you, they're fighting what you carry. The threat isn't your personality, your looks, or even your achievements. It's your potential. It's the future version of you they can't control, predict, or stop. The moment certain people got around you, they sensed something bigger than your current situation. Even if you were broken, or at your lowest, they felt the weight of what you were becoming. That's what had them acting weird. That's what made them start moving funny. It wasn't jealousy over your present, it was fear of your future. There's something about you that bothers them without you even opening your mouth. You don't have to brag. You don't even have to post. The blessing on your life speaks for itself, and the atmosphere shifts when you walk in the room. They start plotting because deep down they know the spotlight is shifting, the torch is being passed. And it's not about popularity, it's about alignment. Your path is divinely timed, and you didn't have to play dirty to get it. That alone eats them up. They can't stand that you didn't need their validation, their approval, or their connections to rise. You didn't have to kiss up to anyone. You didn't have to sell your soul. You just kept evolving, quietly, painfully, and faithfully. And now the version of you that's emerging is a threat to everything they used to feel superior about. You're becoming proof that staying real, staying grounded, and staying chosen pays off. That truth alone exposes their shortcuts, their lies, their masks. So instead of working on themselves, they start working against you. What they're trying to destroy is not just your reputation, it's your reach, it's your voice, your presence, your influence, because even in silence you shift things. They've been watching you closely, not because they care, but because they're scared. Scared you're about to step into something they'll never be able to access. Scared your glow is going to shine light on everything they've been hiding. Scared you'll win, not because of luck, but because of favor, and they're right to be scared. Because you're not fighting for a platform, you're rising into a prophecy. Number two, your blessing triggers their insecurity because it came without their permission. Your blessing didn't go through their approval process, and that's why they're bothered. It came without them being involved, without them helping, without them getting credit. And that burns them more than anything. You didn't ask for their advice. You didn't wait for their permission. You just elevated, quietly, authentically. And that elevation became a mirror to their insecurity. They start thinking, how did you get there without me? That silent resentment turns into subtle sabotage. Shade, backhanded compliments, fake concern, all because your blessing didn't come through them. They expected to be the gatekeepers to your success. In their mind, if you were ever going to rise, it had to be through their connections, their influence, or their approval. When that didn't happen, when you got it straight from the source, it exposed something they didn't want to confront. They were never as necessary to your journey as they thought. That's the truth they can't swallow. It's not just envy, it's wounded ego. They feel skipped, ignored, irrelevant. And instead of dealing with that in private, they start trying to make you feel guilty for growing. They try to label your confidence as arrogance. They question your motives. They create little narratives to downplay your rise. It's not that deep, they'll say, or he's not really all that. But deep down they know it is that deep. What you carry is rare, and what's worse, it didn't need their name on it to flourish. You bloomed without their soil, and now they're mad that they can't take credit for your roots. What bothers them most is that you didn't need to play dirty, you didn't scheme, you didn't manipulate your way to the top, you kept your integrity and still the blessing came. That's what really gets under their skin, because they did all the wrong things, hoping for the right results. And you did the right thing even when it cost you everything. Yet here you are, shining, rising, walking in favor they don't understand and can't replicate. You didn't just get blessed, you got blessed without them. And to people with control issues, that's the ultimate insult. Number 3, their attacks are not random, they're ritualistic. This isn't just random hate, it's strategic. Some of the people trying to throw you off aren't doing it impulsively. They're doing it deliberately, repeatedly, and with one goal: to weaken your spirit. This isn't shade for fun or jealousy on the side. This is a slow, calculated effort to chip away at your peace, your power, and your progress. It's not loud, it's quiet, it's consistent. It's the fake encouragement that always includes a dig. It's the silence when you win. It's the questions they ask that are really just dressed up doubts. These aren't accidental behaviors, they're rituals in disguise. They're not just being negative, they're performing emotional warfare. Every little comment, every look, every well-timed rumor or concern is part of a bigger plan. They want to confuse you, destabilize you, drain your energy, and make you question yourself. They want you exhausted, overthinking, distracted, because that's how they gain control, not through strength, but through manipulation. The whole point is to make you feel small enough to second-guess your gift. And here's the deeper truth. They've studied you. They've been watching what makes you tick. They know what triggers you, what discourages you, and what sets you back. They use that information like a weapon. It's not random, it's rehearsed. They'll smile in your face and twist the knife in your back 5 minutes later. It's a ritual for them, because tearing you down gives them a false sense of power. You shining makes them feel invisible. Your confidence feels like an attack on their carefully crafted image of superiority. They try to frame it as just being real or keeping you grounded, but that's not truth. That's psychological sabotage. It's a pattern, and the goal is to make you sabotage yourself. If they can't destroy you directly, they'll try to make you do it for them. Doubt is their weapon. Insecurity is their tool, but your awareness is your armor. Once you see it clearly, you stop responding to the distractions. You stop absorbing their projections. They want you mentally drained, so you give up on your own. But the fact that you're still standing, still focused, still rising, that's what's driving them crazy. Number 4, the more they plot, the louder heaven laughs. They really think they're setting you up for failure, but all they're doing is setting the stage for your next breakthrough. Every conversation behind your back, every move made to block you, every attempt to humiliate or delay you, it's all being flipped. They don't know they're working for you, not against you. That's the part that makes heaven laugh. Because while they believe they're winning by planting seeds of chaos, God is using those exact seeds to grow your influence, sharpen your strength, and raise your rank. You're not just being protected, you're being positioned. Every weapon formed against you is getting recycled into a stepping stone. They dig pits hoping you'll fall, but end up standing around confused when you build a platform out of their dirt. They're out here throwing storms, not knowing God built you to fly in storms. They sent the fire thinking it would destroy you, but it refined you instead. They created pressure, and it unlocked your oil. That's the irony they'll never understand. People love to plot, but they forget you're not just chosen, you're covered. That means even the mess they design with precision can't override the blessing that's been spoken over your life. Your story has already been written, and no amount of slander, delay, sabotage, or betrayal can cancel what heaven has already assigned. In fact, the more they plot, the more God steps in, not just to protect, but to promote. The most painful attacks often become the very events that launch you. You wouldn't be where you are without the resistance. You wouldn't have discovered certain parts of yourself without the betrayal. It wasn't fair, but it was necessary. Because elevation requires exposure, not just of you, but of everyone around you. And sometimes the only way to reveal true character is to let the enemy try. And when they fail, because they will fail, the same people who plotted your downfall will have no choice but to watch you rise higher than they ever imagined. Not in spite of their traps, but because of them. Number 5, you're not being attacked because you're weak. You're being provoked because you're untouchable. You're not under attack because you're fragile. You're under attack because you're unreachable. That's the part people get twisted. They see opposition and assume something's wrong with them. But the truth is, when you're chosen, the attacks come after your power is recognized, not before. The enemy doesn't waste energy on people with no purpose. If you were weak, they'd ignore you. But the fact that they keep poking, provoking, and pushing proves they know they can't touch you, so instead they try to trigger you. Provocation is a tactic, not to defeat you, but to distract you. They know they can't stop what's on your life, so they try to lure you into fights that don't serve your future. They throw insults, not because it's personal, but because they're hoping to shake your focus. They want to get a reaction out of you. They want you emotional, defensive, unstable. They want you arguing with people who don't matter, so you miss appointments with people who do. That's the strategy. Pull you down into chaos, because they can't rise to your peace. What they don't realize is that you're not running on ego. You're powered by divine code. You're spiritually encrypted. That means their manipulation, their tactics, their envy, it all hits a firewall. You're built different. You're operating on instructions from above, and there's no password or backdoor that lets them access what God has hidden in you. You carry something that cannot be copied, tracked, or dismantled, and that drives them insane. They thought you'd snap. They thought you'd crumble. They thought you'd lose your mind. But the fact that you're still calm, still rising, still rooted, that's the real proof of your power. You've become immune to the games because your spirit sees through the noise. You're not reacting. You're observing. You're not lowering yourself. You're ascending. They don't provoke what's irrelevant. They provoke what's dangerous. And your peace, your grace, your consistency, that's the real threat. You're not untouchable because you're lucky. You're untouchable because you're aligned, and no amount of noise can break what was built in the presence of God. Number 6, you have a calling that doesn't need validation to operate. The real reason they're uneasy around you has nothing to do with arrogance or attitude. It's because you don't need their validation to function. That unsettles people who are used to being the gatekeepers of approval. They expect you to play the game, to bow a little, to ask for a seat at the table they built. But you showed up with your own table, your own recipe, and a divine invitation they didn't sign off on. You're not performing for applause, and that alone makes you unpredictable and dangerous. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to disrupt. And when someone operates from a place of calling, not ego, not ambition, not fear, they're unstoppable. You don't need to over-explain yourself, argue for your spot, or chase recognition. You know who sent you, and that knowing is your power. Your authority wasn't handed to you by people. It was woven into your identity before they ever knew your name. That's what makes your moves so intimidating. They can't trace your source. They think silence is weakness, but in your case, silence is a strategy. You don't waste time trying to convince people who were never meant to understand you. You don't advertise every step because you know spiritual movements happen in silence before they manifest in public. While they're scrambling to measure your next move, you're already 10 steps into your assignment. You're not hiding. You're moving in stealth because destiny doesn't need a microphone. You threaten systems without even trying. They were hoping you'd play small, stay in line, wait your turn. But you bypassed all that because when you're truly called, you don't wait for permission. You move on instruction. You act on divine timing, not social cues. You don't need them to vote you in because God already wrote you in. That's why they talk. That's why they watch. That's why they panic. Because deep down they realize you're not chasing influence. You are influence. You don't just carry potential, you carry a prophetic blueprint. And no amount of gossip, gatekeeping, or jealousy can block what's already been sealed in heaven. Number 7, They studied you to destroy you, but ended up witnessing a mystery. They thought you were simple. They thought if they watched long enough, studied hard enough, copied close enough, they could figure you out. But the deeper they looked, the more confused they became. They couldn't understand how you kept showing up, kept evolving, kept glowing, even after everything you went through. They thought your strength came from strategy. They thought your presence was manufactured. They assumed there was a formula behind your favor, but there wasn't. Because what's on you isn't man-made, it's divine. They dissected your moves like scientists trying to reverse engineer a miracle. They mimicked your tone, stole your ideas, imitated your mannerisms, but nothing stuck. Nothing hit the same. Because you're not a personality. You're a pattern of God's design. A sacred architecture, handcrafted for an assignment that can't be duplicated. They tried to replicate the external, but they couldn't access the internal. They wanted your results without your resilience, your impact without your isolation, your shine without your scars. That's what exposed them. The more they tried to be you, the more they revealed they never had it to begin with. You weren't made in a lab of trends and validation. You were built in the quiet, in the fire, in the depths of rejection and divine encounters. What they call charisma is really character forged in warfare. What they call luck is really the outcome of alignment, obedience, and unshakable faith. They studied your light, but never saw the power source. And the irony? Their obsession with you turned them into witnesses of the very mystery they wanted to erase. Instead of destroying your path, they ended up documenting your prophecy. They became the audience to a life they swore would collapse. You're the case study they can't explain, the anomaly they whisper about, the reminder that favor can't be faked. Your existence alone is proof that some things can't be taught, copied, or manipulated. Some things have to be called. And you were. Number 8, their plot is proof that heaven leaked a glimpse of your future. The intensity of what you're going through isn't a coincidence, it's confirmation. You didn't randomly attract this much opposition, this much tension, or this many calculated attacks. What you're facing right now is the earthly backlash of a spiritual breakthrough that already happened. Before anything shows up in the physical, it first shifts in the spirit. And heaven already released the blueprint with your name on it. That's what they're reacting to, not who you are right now, but who you're becoming. The reason people you barely interact with feel the need to undermine you, block you, or slander you is because they sensed your arrival before you even announced it. Something in the atmosphere shifted. They felt your spirit gaining ground. They picked up on your elevation before you had the chance to explain it. And the enemy doesn't wait until you get the blessing in your hand to attack. He moves at the first sign of your alignment. He launches war at the scent of your breakthrough. This is why the heat turned up suddenly, why old enemies have resurfaced, and why people are now trying to check your temperature when they had nothing to say before. They got a glimpse, not from you, but from the divine. Your breakthrough leaked into the spiritual realm, and now it's causing disruption in the natural. They're not reacting to what's visible. They're reacting to what's already settled in places they can't touch. And this is exactly why you can't afford to back down. The resistance you're facing is actually an announcement that you're walking in something much heavier than you know. You're not fighting to get the breakthrough. You're fighting to protect what's already yours. Spiritually, you've already crossed over. You're already known in realms where your name has weight. What you're feeling now is the aftershock of spiritual movement. That's why the warfare feels personal, because the enemy knows what's coming is permanent. Let them plot. Let them whisper. It only proves one thing. Your destiny was too loud to stay hidden. Heaven let it slip, and now hell is scrambling, not because you're weak, but because it's already done. Number 9, the blessing you carry cannot be undone. It's not a gift, it's a seal. There's a huge difference between a gift that can be taken and a seal that can't be broken. What's on your life is not something handed out by man, therefore it can't be taken away by man. The blessing you carry isn't up for debate, approval, or validation. It's not tied to how perfect you are, how loud you speak, or how popular you become. It's embedded into your identity, and it was placed there before you ever had a platform. You don't walk around with a talent, you walk around with a seal, and that's why they can't figure out how to shut you down. This is why the cancel attempts don't work. Why the smear campaigns fall flat, why the gossip loses its power, because people are trying to undo something that wasn't done by people in the first place. You were chosen before the audience existed, before the critics had names, before social media even gave everyone a voice. Your calling wasn't launched by a trend, and it won't fade with one. You're not here to go viral. You're here to be eternal. That seal, that invisible mark of heaven, is the reason they can't replicate you. It's why someone can copy your tone, your style, even your exact words, and still not carry the weight you do. Because what you have isn't on the surface, it's in your spirit, it's encrypted. People can imitate your movements, but they can't access your frequency. And every time they try, it just reminds them that there's something different about you, something untouched, unshaken, and unbuyable. What frustrates them most is that no matter what they do, you keep getting back up. You keep evolving, you keep being used, because what's on you isn't tied to public opinion, it's tied to divine purpose. It's not something you perform to keep, it's something you were born to carry. Your anointing is your ID, and it unlocks rooms no human could ever deny you. You're not temporary noise, you're a sacred frequency. And no campaign, no lie, no scheme has the authority to silence what heaven has already sealed. Number 10. They're not just plotting against you, they're hoping you sabotage yourself. What they really want is for you to crumble quietly, not from their attacks, but from your own spiraling thoughts. The smartest plot isn't always public betrayal or obvious sabotage. Sometimes it's subtle, it's emotional, it's psychological warfare. They don't have to destroy you if they can convince you to destroy yourself. That's the true strategy. To plant doubt in your mind, to get you to second-guess your power, to overload you with so many false narratives that you can't hear your own voice anymore. They want you exhausted, not just physically but spiritually, worn down by invisible pressure, isolated by your own overthinking, burnt out from overperforming, trying to prove you're worthy when you already were. They don't need to lift a finger if they can get you to walk away from your own calling out of pure mental exhaustion. That's the trap. Not just to hurt you, but to slowly chip away at your clarity and confidence until you're surviving, but no longer building. But here's the shift. Awareness is your weapon now. You're not walking blindly through the storm anymore. You're observing. You're noticing patterns. You're catching triggers in real time. You're no longer blaming yourself for what was projected onto you. You've stopped believing the voice in your head that was never yours to begin with. That inner healing you've been doing, it's not soft work, it's spiritual combat. What they didn't expect is that instead of breaking down, you started reprogramming. Inside the chaos, you started rewiring your nervous system. You stopped reacting from trauma and started moving with strategy. You're not just surviving, you're getting stronger in ways they'll never see coming. You're learning how to rest, not quit. How to pause without collapsing, how to reflect without self-sabotage. You're choosing peace over performance, and that's lethal to their plan. They underestimated you because they thought your silence meant weakness, but it meant alignment. They thought your isolation meant defeat, but it was healing. And now that you've seen the mind games for what they are, you've become immune. You're no longer their puppet. You're your own force now. A storm within a storm, conscious, calm, and completely untouchable. Number 11. You're the spiritual earthquake sent to break generational curses. They're still worshipping. You were never called to blend in. You were called to break through. And what you carry isn't just light, it's disruption. People often assume being chosen means being admired, loved, supported. But in reality, when you walk into a room, you don't just bring good vibes, you bring spiritual tremors. You shake what's been comfortable in darkness for generations. You disturb cycles people have learned to protect, romanticize, and even worship as culture or tradition. That's why some people around you don't like you and can't even explain why. It's not you they hate. It's what breaks loose when you walk in. You're not the continuation of a bloodline, you're the interruption. The one that exposes every generational lie, every cycle of silence, addiction, manipulation, or spiritual blindness that's been passed down like an heirloom. You weren't just sent to carry the family name, you were sent to purify it. That's why you were rejected early, isolated, misunderstood, because your vibration threatened what had been rooted for too long. Some of them aren't angry with you. They're terrified because your life is a living contradiction to everything they settled for. You love differently. You think differently. You don't move with fear, and you don't obey dysfunction. You don't play the family roles designed to keep you small. And that's dangerous, because in standing tall, you expose the lies that kept everyone else hunched over. You weren't just chosen to receive blessings. You were chosen to confront bloodline agreements made with pain, poverty, secrecy, and shame. You were sent to tear altars down, not the visible kind, but the emotional and psychological ones generations kneeled at out of fear and survival. Your life is warfare. Every boundary you set is a sword in the spirit. Every healed wound is a broken chain. Every truth you speak breaks a silence that's been killing people quietly for decades. You're not just favored, you're feared in the realm of darkness because your obedience sends earthquakes. Your presence shakes things out of hiding. And while some may never say it, deep down they know you weren't sent to fit in. You were sent to end what never should have started. Number 12, they want to throw you off because they can't stand that you're unbothered while being targeted. They keep poking, prodding, whispering lies and watching your reaction, convinced that sooner or later you'll crack. But nothing they do phases you. Your calm isn't a sign they've succeeded. It's proof they never had a shot. They thought the moment they turned up the pressure you'd implode, but instead you lean in. That unsettles them more than any shouting match ever could. They want chaos. They want you scrambling. They want drama. They need the satisfaction of seeing you lose control. When they don't get it, they spiral into frustration because they realize they're investing energy into someone who refuses to play by their rules. It's hard for people to wrap their heads around someone who stays steady amid storm-level tactics. They expect tears, excuses, self-doubt. And when you don't deliver, they panic. They scramble to find new angles, subtle digs disguised as advice, veiled insults in concern, strategic silences meant to confuse. None of it works. You see every move for what it is, weak attempts to provoke a response. And your refusal to engage is more powerful than any argument. You're not ignoring them because you don't care. You're unmoved because you know exactly who you are and why you're here. They crave a reaction. They want to hear your voice crack, catch you stumbling, catch you lying to yourself. But your silence is the loudest message you can send. It says, your opinions don't define me. It says, your manipulation doesn't change my purpose. It says, I'm not distracted by your fear, I'm fueled by my faith. And that is the ultimate slap in the face to anyone betting on your downfall. They want to feel like their negativity has leverage. When it doesn't, they feel powerless. And powerless people get reckless. Your restraint isn't passivity, it's strategy. You're not just surviving, you're studying. You're gathering proof that their tactics are hollow. You're turning every insult into confirmation of your strength. You're using their noise to sharpen your focus. And while they pace, fume, and hurl whatever they think will break you, you're calmly moving closer to your destiny. Their inability to rattle you is the most potent revelation of all. It reveals their impotence and your invincibility. They'll keep trying, but every failed attempt only reinforces your authority. Their frustration becomes your fuel. Their chaos highlights your peace, and ultimately your unbothered composure will be the testimony that silences them forever. Number 13, they will watch you ascend, using the very weapons they threw at you. They thought they were breaking you, but all they did was build the foundation of your ascension. Every insult was meant to shrink you. Instead, it carved out deeper resilience. Every betrayal was aimed to dismantle your trust. But it sharpened your discernment. Every setup, every lie, every attempt to block you only gave heaven more material to work with. What they meant to use against you is now being flipped, stretched, and repurposed into elevation. Not just survival, ascension. What they don't understand is that when you're chosen, you're not playing by the rules of this world. You're governed by a different law, divine reversal. You don't climb in spite of the weapons thrown at you, you rise because of them. They gave you nails, not realizing you were building an ark. They gave you stones, not knowing you were laying the foundation for a palace. The very curses they hurled in the dark are becoming construction material in the light. You didn't grow because you were comfortable. You grew because you were cornered. And every time they tried to bury you, they accidentally fertilized you. You didn't cave in, you rooted deeper. They locked doors and you stopped knocking. Not because you gave up, but because you realized the doors they shut weren't worthy of the destiny you carry. Heaven rerouted you. What looked like rejection became redirection, and every detour turned into divine leverage. Now the irony is kicking in. They're watching from a distance as the narrative flips. The rumors they started gave people a reason to research you and find the truth. The people they tried to turn against you are now turning toward you. The very ashes they thought you'd disappear into are becoming the platform from which you'll rise, stronger and more radiant than ever. And here's the kicker. You're not even bitter. You're too busy building, too focused on purpose. You're not out for revenge. You're out for results. That's what stings them most. You're turning every attack into strategy, every loss into learning, every weapon into a stepping stone. And one day soon, they won't just hear about your elevation. They'll have a front row seat to watch you rise on the very things they meant to ruin you with. Number 14. The blessing on your life is too expensive to be taken down by discount-level demons. What's on your life didn't come cheap. It cost pain, isolation, nights you couldn't explain, betrayals that should have broken you, and endurance no one saw. So no, this blessing didn't come from a feel-good sermon or a few motivational quotes. It was carved through affliction. That's why it's protected. That's why low-level demons, gossip, petty sabotage, and insecure people will never be enough to cancel what heaven already authorized. You're not here because life was easy. You're here because grace is real. And grace doesn't just restore, it crowns. The warfare you've been facing, it's not random, it's not coincidental, it's customized resistance aimed at a customized calling. Discount-level spirits are swinging at a heavyweight anointing and failing miserably. Because what you carry has weight. Not surface level, not vibes, not a good aura, authority. And you don't fight like everyone else. You don't react, you shift. You don't beg, you command. You don't defend, you declare. You weren't built for small assignments. That's why you don't fit in comfortable spaces. You were crafted for battlegrounds and blueprints. You were designed to walk into rooms and alter what no one wants to confront. That's why some people can't stand your presence, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. Your silence convicts, your peace exposes chaos, your joy irritates darkness, and your clarity dismantles confusion that people have learned to live with. You're not meant to fight every demon, and you don't need to explain every move. Because when your authority is real, your mere presence speaks. You weren't made for defense. You were made for dominion. You walk through storms with strategy. You sleep through attacks that would have sent others spiraling, not because you're numb, but because you know who you are, and more importantly, you know who's backing you. So let them talk, let them scheme, let the warfare intensify. It only proves the value of what you carry, and it only confirms this truth. The blessing on your life is too expensive to ever be taken down by anything that isn't operating on heaven's level. You're not surviving to prove them wrong. You're rising because you were never built to be stopped. They threw everything they could, slander, sabotage, silence, and setups, thinking it would stop you. But what they didn't realize is you were never moving by public approval or earthly permission. You were moved by divine instruction. They underestimated the architecture of your spirit. They thought they were dealing with someone breakable, but they were dealing with someone anointed, and not the performative kind, the dangerous kind, the kind that doesn't just survive fire, but walks out of it transformed. This journey was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving God right. Every attack was a signpost. Every rejection was a redirection. Every delay, every dark night, every strange opposition was proof that heaven had leaked your coordinates. They weren't reacting to your current status. They were reacting to your future revelation. Your calm under pressure wasn't ignorance. It was strategy. Your silence wasn't weakness. It was alignment. Your pain wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You're not just chosen, you're commissioned. You were sent to shake systems, confront shadows, and break cycles your bloodline bowed to. You're not blessed for the sake of being admired. You're blessed to be disruptive to darkness. That's why the warfare has been so calculated. But so has your protection. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to overthrow. Now, your elevation isn't revenge, it's revelation. You're not rising to clap back. You're rising because destiny doesn't require consensus, and the very weapons formed against you are now working for you. The traps became training, the pain became prophecy, the resistance became your runway. Let this be the final word. They plotted, they pushed, they provoked, but you prevailed, And you're not done. You're just getting started, because the blessing on your life isn't situational. It's sealed. And no demon, dysfunction, or deception can reverse what heaven has already stamped as unstoppable. If this word hit your spirit like thunder and confirmed what you already knew deep down, then don't just scroll past. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another divine download made just for you. Hit that like button if you know the blessing on your life is sealed and untouchable. Comment below and declare it, I was built for this and I'm rising regardless. Your words have power, and somebody needs to read your faith in action. And listen, don't keep this fire to yourself. Share this with someone else who's been under silent attack, someone who's felt the pressure and didn't know it was actually proof of their purpose. Be the confirmation they've been praying for. This is more than content. This is kingdom clarity. And around here, we don't just survive storm, we rise through them. Let's keep shaking the gates of darkness together. Until next time, stay grounded, stay bold, and never forget, you weren't chosen to be liked. You were chosen to lead.